Um, this is new to me. You guys might not know me. Some of you might know me. I'm really honored and humbled to be with all of you here. I really want to thank Devanati and Tanya. I mean, like Becca, I've known Tanya for a really long time, probably a couple years after I started teaching, but I've been to her house and I've been to Devanati, but I've never been inside your homes. So thanks for inviting me into your homes. I really appreciate it. And welcome to my living room. As I said, I put my couch on casters. And I rolled up the carpet and everything so that when we do the chair yoga, it'll be really clean and easy for those of you who are going to be joining. I would take you to my bedroom, but it has all the shit in it now. So you can't come to my bedroom. I don't know if you know anything about me, but my hashtag is kind of like live to learn. And I am a student of life. I'm also an adjunct professor at the University of Minnesota and at MCAD in product design. I was trained as a product designer. And like Tanya, you know, we came to teaching after we had real jobs. So I feel like I've been on a sabbatical for like 20 plus years. And it's just been a really long sabbatical. And I've been doing something that I love ever since. So I have an ERYT, YACEP, and I'm a registered school, but I've never opened a school because of people like Tanya who have great schools. I don't need to go into that. I can help facilitate and be present and hold space. So we're going to do a quick check-in before meditation. I have been really weepy and overwhelmed. And so I guess what I would like to know as we hang out together, and then we'll do some small group sessions and connect with your peers, because I don't know when the last time you saw everybody. But I kind of wanted to know, you know, I'm having this roller coaster of emotions and we're in the thick of it. So I kind of want to know how you are and how you're coping as I'm being invited into your lives and into your homes and I don't know you. So maybe we could all just check in and someone's chatting. Okay, so just checking the chat. And so like I would love, before I kind of go into an opening monologue, which it feels like because I'm on a TV show, I thought maybe you all could check in at least. Hi, Andrea. And so good to see your face. And kind of talk, because this is really overwhelming as we have the biggest public health crisis in a century, the worst economic downturn in generations, and the largest civil unrest since the 60s. I'm really frustrated and feeling all my feels, and I've never felt so jacked in my entire life, you know? And I'm just feeling the whole gamut. And so I would love everybody to check in before we do an opening meditation to hold space for each other, to kind of just say how you're feeling and what's up with you, or, you know, maybe one word, or you can also pass, just to kind of touch base. I'm Jess. I feel really fucked up right now. How's that? Awesome. So anybody can go next.
Well, I'm Joyce, and Joyce. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm removed from Minneapolis. I'm up north in Superior, Wisconsin, which is next to Duluth. And actually today I'm up at Eveleth in my boyfriend's cabin, and beautiful lake out in front of me. So I'm very, very lucky. I can't believe what happened. And let's start with, I've been on a furlough for 2 months. And in
Okay.
the very beginning, it was really scary to think I wasn't connected to my job, and that financial stability.
Yeah.
That was really scary. And then it just became kind of okay because I had time to do yoga more and just had time to myself. And now it's getting warm. And then, Monday happened and George Floyd was murdered in
Yeah, we're
front of
gonna talk about that.
everybody.
Yeah.
And all the protests and unrest. And our politics, it's very, very, it's hard, and I am
Yeah.
removed from it all.
So you're at a
But
cabin and you're looking at a beautiful lake, which is lucky. And you have like a swing thing behind you or something.
oh,
It's awesome.
it's a bag
Oh, it's a
from
purse. Oh, okay. Cool.
Duluth pack bag.
Oh, very nice. So
uh,
I don't want to interrupt you, but I kind of am going to interrupt you because I just realized it's 6:12 and we're together till 9. So if we could all, when we check in and say hi and check in with your peers, maybe keep it to a couple sentences.
okay.
And
Anyway,
now you can go. Yeah.
okay, I'm just sad that we are in this. This is the way it is in our country, but maybe there'll be change. I think this is it that will change everything. So that's how I feel.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello,
Hi. Hi.
I'm Jessica. I've done a chair training with you, Jess. It was a couple of years ago, and I'm really excited to just kind of go back and learn this book with you again. Right now, I've just been feeling grateful. We own our house. I have dogs that are always right next to me and loving me. She put her paw on my hand. So I'm trying to be grateful and spiritual, and I read the Bhagavad Gita just recently, and that really, I don't know, it's kind of what the world's going through today. And
I'm gonna talk about some of that stuff today. Thank you.
I'll go. I'm Mike, and I'm here in Minneapolis too, and had a pretty up and down week, but some lights going on, I think, in my mind through all of this, and willfully taking in a lot of things, and also using this time to remind myself that this training that I'm doing can be a positive instrument, for anyone's life, and I intend to direct my energy that way.
Thank you.
I'll go next. I'm Andrea, and I studied with you my 200-hour at Yoga Center, so it's great to see you again. But I've just found it really hard to be a white person lately. It's just like, feels horrible, and it's been really hard to share authentically, and I feel like everything I say could be the wrong thing. Even though I have friends from countries all over the world and who've always loved being a global person. It's just a hard time. I mean, it's even harder to be a Black person now, but it's also a hard time to just be a person right now. And I just want to throw that out there.
The Constitution says we, the people, not I. That's the thing that is our problem. Thank you, Andrea. I totally understand if people don't want to check in and say hi. Just know that we're here to hold space for you.
Hi, can I go next? This is Shiva. Hopefully you can hear me.
Shiva. I can hear you.
All right. Well, good evening, Jess, and all you beautiful people. Well, personally, I think my 2020 was actually in 2017. So I kind of feel like, I've been through some of the quarantining issues that we faced with the pandemic. In terms of all the unrest that's going on, well, I've maybe seen some of that too, because I'm from India and we've witnessed curfews before when I was growing up. It's not a fun thing, but one quote kind of comes to mind for me that was given to me by a colleague in another career counseling training I'd done some years back. She told me, I don't know who the quote actually belongs to, so props to whoever said it, but it goes, there's no comfort in the growth zone and there's no growth in the comfort zone. So I think for things, deep-seated issues to resolve, there is a period of transition. We're maybe somewhere in the midst of that. It's not pretty, just like a forest fire, you know, sometimes things have to literally burn down before there's a new awakening. So I can only kind of like what was said earlier is hold on to the fact that this training, this Sangha that we have is going to be that positive instrument, part of that solution going forward. So namaste to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
I know there's a lot of us here.
That's really strange.
Yeah, I think it's the age. I mean, we're probably about the same age, and
Old farts.
yes. And this has been, it's very interesting. So I grew up in Baltimore and the riots that were in 2015. I was living in California at the time, and I just wanted to run home. And I grew up in a neighborhood adjacent to where the riots were happening. And I just wanted to like run home and like do whatever I could to help. And with this, I'm in a very different stage of my life, and I have two youngish children. They're 6 and just 9. And we've been having, like the past few months, we've been having some pretty serious conversations. We lived in California, and you know, when they were little, we started talking about forest fires and wildfires, and you know, the positives and the negatives, and living with face masks through forest fires. And now, you know, the COVID-19, and you know, we got through those tough discussions, and now this, and we actually sat yesterday and we all watched the service, and it was wonderful. And there were questions and there were tears, and you know, from us and from, and I just think it's a very different experience than what I had as a child. And I feel like my children are learning a lot more, a lot faster, which is good. And I think that's great for our future generations, and for, you know, bring this to light and let's talk about it. So that's what I'm going through, a lot of talking. And
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I'll just say my name's Tracy, and I really feel like the last few months, I mean, and this is sort of like icing on top of all sorts of the strange things we've all been going through, but just trying to understand for myself, trying to understand boundaries about what I can control and what I can't control. And then for me, that has meant ultimately figuring out the self-care that I need to do in order to kind of tend my light so that I can continue being in the world. Yeah, I'll just share that.
Thank you. That's very great. We could do thumbs up if anybody wants to do any sharing, or I'm gonna start to move forward. Thumbs up, thumbs sideways, thumbs down, thumbs up. Good to go? All right. Well, thank you for being here once again. So we're in this really interesting space where we're resetting individually, we're resetting culturally. Some of you might be in crisis. Some of you are supporting others. Some of you are maintaining vigilance for your neighborhood. I know that's why some of people might not be here right now. And so I have no idea what everybody's going through, and my heart goes out to each and every one of you, because we all come to this planet with our own experiences, right? Like what some of you were saying about like how you grew up versus what's happening right now. So my heart goes out to all of you, and I'm a hugger and we can't hug. So, and we can't elbow bump. So I want to give you a virtual hug, but I really want to make sure that you share and hold space for yourself tonight and do what you need to do and even this weekend, if you got to go pee, if you got to go eat, if you want to eat in front of me and have me just be the TV show, I'll totally do that. I was already feeling ambiguity and uncertainty during the pandemic, but now, like Tanya stated to all of you, times are really surreal. And what happened was really unexcusable. The entire world is standing with the family of George Floyd and the Black community because Black Lives Matter. But I also feel that, you know, it's bringing up things from Breonna Taylor. I'm not going to pronounce these names right. Aubrey and Michael Brown and Eric Gardner and Philando Castillo. You know, there's just so much stuff that is kind of like, this was the tipping point, right? And like what you were saying, I don't know if you're Jess also, but like Jess was saying, how do you explain this unrest to yourself, but let alone like your neighbors, but to your children? And racism and discrimination, the turmoil and the tragedy has really just been unjust. So I loved when some of you checked in and talked about how, because of this collective grief that's palatable and heavy and the air is thick with it, I loved how you said that, you know, we're creating a Sangha, we're creating a community with Devanati and your teacher training, because that's the thing for me as an internal optimist, is that you can see the good, even though there's fucking shit happening. And I apologize, I'm a swearer, so if anybody's offended, you can symbol something to me and I'll stop. You can chat me. But in order for me to be this internal optimist and see the world through rose-colored glasses, I see the good that's happening and how we're reducing our planetary impact, right? How like we're minimizing some of our environmental pollutions, like China's air quality's gotten way better before they started back up. We're reducing traffic congestion. My friend works for a bike company and they like can't keep bikes in stock, right? The dolphins are coming back in the oceans. And for work, companies are altering everyday operations, which means that like some people who are night owls can work at night, or day people can work at day, or you can like take a walk, or you can work with your family. And then speaking of family, like, you know, simple pleasures of cooking or gardening, you know, my partner and I, he started a garden and that we've already started eating lettuce that's coming from the garden and radishes. So like we wouldn't have done that if we weren't furloughed for a month or like had time to step back and reevaluate. I also think that, you know, from my eternal optimist is that there's a breaking open of human generosity and empathy. Like all the countless volunteers that have gone to support the community and help the neighborhoods clean up and rebuild, you know, people have gone down there and like there was nothing to clean up because people were cleaning up so fast, which is so amazing. Giving food, even wearing a mask or social distancing, and then acknowledging the goodness of all the countless doctors, nurses, and healthcare workers, or the people in the front line that are helping to save lives. So every time I start to kind of see or get weighted down with things, I always have to remember all the goodness that's happening at the same time. And BKS Iyengar wrote that you don't need to seek freedom in a different land, for it exists in your own body, heart, mind, and soul. And you all know that, right? We can create peace and justice in the world and your inner world through yoga. And it's so amazing to be learning, you know, and like me, constantly learning, constantly like always stepping up and taking something so that you can keep contributing and being a force for good, you know, like we are superheroes. And we can see this as an opportunity for growth. Change in the laws and politics, like firing Bob Kroll. Sorry if I'm getting too political for anybody. Changes in human behavior and how we treat fellow humans. And through the practice of yoga, this right living of the Yoga Sutras and the 8-limb path is an opportunity to come to our senses, so that when I can't get my poop in a group, that I use the practice to reframe physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and teach me, because it has become a conditioned response, right? We're just it's like muscle memory, that I can be alert and aware, but not anxious. And so we're here this weekend together to empower and raise the vibration of our minds, our bodies, and our hearts. And I'm sure you've heard lots of really good Martin Luther King quotes, but darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And it's super, super hard for us to live through these big time of change. But I believe that through your community that you all have here and your training, but also like just the yoga practice itself, we have the ability to be resilient and thrive, because we have these incredible awareness practices that we're studying so that we can share them with everybody else. But most importantly, offer compassion to ourselves. So as we spend tonight, and some of you tomorrow, to transform our world together, we're also transforming ourselves. So in order to kind of like talk about alignment tonight, because that's our class, I thought that we could start by sitting and just listening, and do a really nice, comfortable meditation and hold space and stillness together to send compassion and that metta, that loving kindness, to people around. So I thought that we could, you can sit, you can lay down, you can turn your screen, so that you're not there. But I thought that we could do like a little bit of a body scan. That's just a healing therapeutic body scan to connect us to the earth, get us out of our heads. So as you soften yourself into a comfortable position, you can just listen to my voice. You can have your hands relaxing or your palms in the Gyan Mudra, which is a great link between the individual and the universe. And I thought today we could set an intention to root down to rise up. We could do a meditation for the earth, because our bodies are made from the elements of the planet. Our blood is made from its waters. The air we breathe is from its atmosphere. And we are not separate. And when we recognize this deeply, we are on our way towards the first step of yoga, which is ahimsa. That in thought, speech, and action, we are compassionate to ourselves and to others. And as we also set this intention to root down and rise up, it's also a meditation to our root chakra, those earth elements, to allow us to create balance and stay steady and stay in together in solidarity, but also to be flexible like a tree during this unique and unprecedented time. So wherever you are, just begin listening to the breath. Feel the comfort of the space that you're in as you allow yourself to be in this moment, living life from your heart. Start to sense the compassion and softness in your belly. Enjoy the tenderness and the feelings in your heart. Feel the warmth of your hands, like you're holding your heart and its sunshine, radiant. And just listen to how you're feeling as you breathe in with ease and breathe out with ease. And breathing in with ease and breathing out with ease. Take these warm breaths of compassion and begin to feel your heart righting itself, slowing down everything, thoughts, sensations, so you can just listen. And begin to feel your heart saying, I am grateful. Feel the majestic nature of the earth coursing through your veins, relaxing into the rhythm. Breathe in with ease and breathe out with ease. And feel the breath. Listen as the silence empowers you. Feel yourself letting go of any forcing or any striving. All control over the breath. Literally just listen and witness yourself breathing. Feel that you can trace your breath entering the nostrils, guiding its way to the lungs, calmly flowing through your entire body. Soothing waters deep within. Just follow the flow of the inhales and the exhales. Breathing in with ease and breathing out with gratitude. Sink in a little bit deeper. I invite you to feel your eyes relax, eyelids closing, connecting with the warmth of your breath. Breathe in and breathe out. And drop into you. Flush your body with the deep, nourishing breath. Feel the wisdom of your roots as your feet touch earth. Safe, secure, and supported. Feel the strong, stable, healing energy flowing. Just breathing and being. Sense the healing and loving kindness for yourself and for Mother Earth. The gratitude in your veins, your internal organs functioning, happy and healthy. Feel your spine long, your shoulders literally melting and dropping from the ears. Stress leaves the body and rolls off the arms, fingertips. You are letting go of all tightness in the body. Notice and feel the breath, effortless, easy. And witness the air as you breathe in and you breathe out. From the base of the spine to the crown of the head, and the crown of the head to the base of the spine. You are glowing. You are warm. You are tranquil. Feel as if your spine is like a beautiful tree. Roots down the legs, through the toes, digging into the moist dirt, right into the earth core. Breathe in vitality, life force, positive energy. And breathe out, letting go of any heaviness. Breathe in and breathe out. Truly feel in your heart, I am peace. And as you sense your roots growing deep down into the earth's core, Mother Earth, feel united, feel the healing, feel whole, and feel strong as you are connected to all things. And breathe in that nurturing sustenance. And when you breathe out, feel even deeper roots, truly releasing what no longer serves you, what is not yours to bear. Breathe in and breathe out. Feel it deep down within your heart. I am evolving. And calmly and courageously begin to plant the seed of hope. Feel compassion gather around your heart and dissolve fear. Your breath kindles bravery. And you are tall like a wise oak tree, standing strong no matter which way the winds of change blows. Goodness blossoms on every branch. A fresh new hope is developing. Breathe in and breathe out. Your breath moves as freely like winds on an open prairie. Feel and sense how steady and secure you are as you transform, as you evolve. Like a soaring mountain, nothing can erode your calm. Your body, every neuron and fiber and tissue and cell, is as brilliant as the countless stars in the night sky. And positive vibes radiate throughout. Breathe in and breathe out. Your mind a clear blue sky, vibrant. And all of Earth's resources are a part of you. And you are bountiful. You are beautiful. You are blissful. And truly feel within your heart, I am love. Deep breaths in, deep breaths out. I am love. Slowly and gently, bring yourself back into this space with your eyes still closed. Thumbs caress the fingertips, toes spread wide. If you are laying down, move back into a comfortable seated position with bringing your hands together in front of your heart. I truly honor and respect the power within each and all of you. in thought, speech, and action. May the merits of our practice together this weekend benefit all beings. And as you feel the connection and the warmth, that healing vibe in your heart and in your hands, just gently rub your palms together vigorously. Begin to place your hands over your eyes. And when you release your hands and open your eyes, we find this new, fresh perspective as we love more and stress less. Namaste. So now that we've had our nice little break here, we're going to get prepared for class. But just in case, I can mute all. Let's see. Now I can unmute all. Let's see. It has a whole new way. Now I can't unmute all of you. You get to unmute yourself. So tonight, we are going to hang out and do you want to take a bio break? Does anybody need to take a bio break, or I can continue? Everybody's good?
Can I just ask what sort of practice we're going to be doing? Are you asking if we need a break before we go into a practice?
We're not going to practice tonight. Were you wanting to practice tonight?
No, I wasn't totally sure. If I turned down a break now, I didn't know when we'd get a break.
Oh, yeah, no, we'll get a break again. We'll get a break again. Yeah, I want to make sure you guys get breaks. So, yeah, and we can always, if you need to get up for a second, you're welcome to. Tonight, we're talking about the art of adjustments and verbal cueing and paying attention to alignment. And kind of where and how to adjust. This is a precarious scenario because we are not all together. So that's always fun. This is a true testament to a teacher. And this is, I don't know, how many of you are teaching right now? So a lot of you are teaching right now already. So you might be teaching via Zoom, or you might be doing social distancing parties. I know some people are having 10 people social distancing parties. But what we're going to do tonight is figure out how to find the seat of the pose. And we're going to practice tools and attend to each other. So I will have us do little breakout rooms at one point so that you can practice your words and your cueing on someone. And then we're going to end tonight with an 8-minute seated meditation. I thought it was only appropriate to just have silence since I just talked. And to do a silent meditation together to close our practice for this evening. Does that sound good? Our focus tonight is all about this beautiful thing called alignment. Alignments and adjustments are pretty interesting. Twists, forward folds, inversions, back bends. Balance is our superpower because alignment as it relates to Hatha Yoga is everything. A lot of times when I do texts, I ask questions for journals. And I thought tonight it would be, what does it feel like to be out of alignment in your practice? And what does it feel to be out of alignment in your life? And well, we couldn't have gotten a better tech for the world being out of whack and how to stay stable. So we're gonna, for some of you, and Tanya and I talked about this, it was more about, some of you it might be a refresher, some of you it might be hands-on things that you've never seen before, but we thought it would be interesting because you often hear her voice, to hear someone else's voice kind of saying the same thing, but maybe using different languaging. So things might be redundant, but you're welcome to communicate with me. I know you all have your mute on, but you can ask questions and like talk too. Hopefully it doesn't become like a monologue. I love seeing everybody's pets or like where you're at. It's so awesome. Or humans, little humans. Our bodies are amazing human machines powered by the breath. And we have such an incredible amount of untapped power as you're learning through your teacher training and as you're learning through all of the new practices. But our spine is the superhighway to our brain. And if we're powered by the breath, our inhales and our exhales become the pistons of our engine. So through proper alignment and through proper adjustments in the moves, it helps us to harness our energies and it empowers us to thrive. One of my mentors always would say to me, I don't know if anybody's heard of Richard Freeman, but T.S. Little, Richard Freeman, Rod Stryker, and who's the guy who did Anya Sara, John Friend. Like the four of them were friends and they all started together and they were like kind of teaching the same theories and concepts and they were going to start something together, but then they all started getting their own philosophy. So like Richard Freeman is a mentor that I follow as Tanya follows Rod Stryker. We have similar languaging, but maybe something different. But he always says that we are twisted souls trying to find center. And as we practice, we're using alignment to build a strong foundation and flow with all of life's challenges on and off the mat. And I think that's a really huge thing as we become teachers and go out there and teach. Alignment is the key to proper adjustments, whether you're in person or not in person. So if we look at how we're all sitting, some of us might be slumping, some of us might be standing up, some of us might be sitting, you know, like in different positions, but that all is addresses how we create a foundation for getting our superhighway and our brain functioning properly so that our prefrontal cortex is working. Does that make sense? And when our prefrontal cortex is working, it's where that place of the prajna, that inner light, right? That's where wisdom dawns. So, yeah. When we come into alignment, I also think that, you know, you're coming into alignment with your spirit or your soul. Or have you ever heard of optimal alignment? It's a kind of like a life coach kind of a thing, but when you're in optimal alignment, you're in that state of happiness and bliss. And so happiness is a way of travel. It's not a destination. Because our spine is a superhighway to our brain, our practice is kind of allowing us to tap into our birthright, right? Alignment's all about really getting to that place of balance and order and rhythm and harmony. Another thing that's really interesting to think about is that asanas don't have alignment. People have alignment. And to be in perfect alignment is kind of a myth, because there really is no right way to do a pose. Sorry for those of you who are control freaks. Asana is what limb of the practice? Did you hold up 3? Which one is it? This is not a Jessica answer. This is like a silly, just, you know, like, hey, what is it? Asana is after the moral precepts, after ahimsa, right? And then asana sits on the platform of the breath. So it's those kind of like, as it's the third one, it's really showing us that if we don't have proper alignment, we don't have proper breath. Our bandhas won't work and function properly. And we need to really focus on getting attuned with our spine before we can truly be able to breathe properly. And the breath is kind of that golden key that gets us into the deeper internal practices that you're learning in the deeper studies right now with Devanati. Yeah. It's super weird to be looking at all your faces and have the mute off. So I apologize if I keep going, yeah, right? I'm just trying to see. Another thing that's really interesting is that one of the most important things as we focus on alignment is that alignment is the ability to hold ourselves upright in a way that allows our physical and emotional self to be the best. That's kind of like my key to everything that I teach when I'm working with kids. Is like when we allow ourselves to tap into the practice of yoga, then we're not just getting a hero's physique. We're actually really getting our head on straight. Alignment helps us to connect. It helps us to focus. It helps us to breathe. It gives us a grounded sensation, what we like to call proprioception. Have you heard that? So when you're in proprioception is like when we do high plank, we're safe in space. So proprioception is all about like getting yourself comfortable and in a safe space so you feel consistency and support and wholeness. And that's part of that awareness practice of alignment. Our visualization tonight to kind of start our practice was about feeling firmly rooted like a tree, and we tapped into nature and those kind of like root chakra energies. But like a tree, when we are healthy, nurtured, and flexible, we grow roots to bear fruit. But without that strong foundation, it's just like a pretty pose, but you're not really connected. All right. Alignment is nothing when you're a teacher without our words, right? Teaching itself is a practice and it's a skill in action. And I think that for those of you who already are teachers, what you've noticed is that the most powerful tool that you have as a teacher is your voice. And especially in this time where we're not there to touch, we have to think about the tone of our voice and the voice fluctuation. We have to think about being really succinct with our verbal cues. And I've taken lots of trainings, so I'm kind of like a yoga slut. So like one of my teachers in something that I don't want to say what training it was because they all got in trouble, but we used to teach like we were teaching to a robot, and we could only say 3 things, right? So like for triangle pose, it would be like, ooh, I've been sitting for a while. It would be like, open your arms and legs nice and wide. Point your toes to the right. On your exhale, reach hand to foot. And I love, as you can tell, like super flowery words and all that like beautiful flowing stuff. But you have to figure out how to make everything accessible from the get-go. So until people really know you, if you throw in a lot of flowery language, all of a sudden you're not helping with alignment. You're just playing that with their mental space. Does that make sense? Awesome. So our verbal cues are really huge, and that would be a key if you have not taught, or if you are kind of like in a space where it's something new. Teach 3 cues and speak like you're speaking to a robot. That works really well. You set the timing and the pacing. So if you come into the space all wackadoodle or anxious or thinking about what you're going to make your family or yourself for dinner, then all of a sudden you have basically you've brought the kitchen table to, you've brought all your issues into the room with you. I always feel like I will go to the bathroom or wash my hands and do some kind of cleanse so that I can let everything go, like leave your stuff at the coat check before you go into the party, So that's another cue that I would say to you, is that because you set the timing and the pacing, you have to really be present with your breath, but also present and out of your mental mind stuff. And that takes a lot of mind strength, right? That takes a lot of yoga on your own to just not get caught up in those little things that start to percolate and pop up as you're teaching. Another thing is when you're doing adjustments on students is to remember to be supportive and motivating. Some of you might have teaching in life coaching or in empowerment things, or be a trained therapist. I think that the Yoga Sutras and the 8-limb path is the first. I think Patanjali was the first therapist, and that's why that shit was written down. Whoever wrote that stuff down, because it was helping people. Yoga is the calming of the fluctuations of the mind. And I think that we have to find ways as teachers to be supportive and motivate, and use the skills that we have from our own life experiences or our own trainings to help people, just like we're armchair therapists. So that's a huge thing about adjustments with students, is even just being supportive or smiling is the biggest thing ever, because it's a shot of dopamine when you smile. When we kind of talk about alignment, you want to teach from modifications on up. And I think that's really important too. From the feet up, we're going to do practices and kind of like feel things in our body, but I just think we always start from the feet up, root to rise. Give space to adjust to everybody's skeleton, like I mentioned in the beginning, and the ability to help them modify for their particular body type, because yoga is for every body, but every body still needs to have an even distribution of weight. Do you know why some people can't become ballerinas? No. So some people can't become ballerinas because Here's my hip, and here is my femur. And as it comes up, it has like that trochanter, you know, that thing that Pebbles put in her hair where you saw those cute, the bone, right? So that trochanter fits into the hip socket, and there's an acetabulum, and it's the insertion point. So some people, and I'm going to get farther back, some people can't stand with their feet together because of the way the insertion point is in their hips, right? So for my particular body type, when someone says stand in Tadasana, it's actually better for me and it's safer for my knees and my hips if my feet are frontal hip bone distance apart. Whereas some people, if they're insertion points where they have more openness and can, you know, do a deeper rotation, then it's okay to put their feet together. So that's what I mean with like meeting everybody's particular body type. And that's tough because we're watching bodies and touching bodies as teachers. And in the world of Zoom, we can only watch bodies. We can't touch bodies. So I highly recommend something that you could think about is that you do group stuff, but you also say like, hey, do you want to do a 15-minute like body assessment or a one-on-one? And then you can do some of these tricks I'm going to teach you tonight. Cool. All right, all I hear are helicopters and see faces. So if I make funny faces to you once again, it's just really surreal. Okay. The other thing is as you are setting the timing and the pacing, you also have to think about if you're going to do adjustments or you're cueing adjustments for a specific person, that you breathe with that student. Now, really easy when I am in a room, collective people, and teaching a class, which that will happen again in the near future, maybe near or far. But say I have an imaginary friend here, and I'm going to hold on to their hips and give them a downward dog adjustment, right? If I was going to grab onto them, first of all, they would give me their consent before class. But if I was going to start to move with them, I would have to move within the rhythm of their breath. So I would have to pay attention to how they're breathing so that as they inhale to broaden, I then exhale, I would gently pull back, but I would be breathing with the student. Does that make sense? Awesome. Okay, another thing, and I think you guys might be learning this weekend, but the idea of trauma sensitive, I think you are studying that, yes? So the idea of trauma sensitive words and appropriate touch is huge too when you're practicing the art of adjustments. I've been, you know, you kind of get these like interesting situations that happen, but I've had people who like totally love being touched and they've talked, you know, they've signed the consent, they've talked about it. And then like one day they were like in a really shitty mood and I gave them adjustment and I came close to them and they said, back the fuck off. Like super loud so you could hear it from like the other side of the big yoga room. So we all have to really remember we don't know what people are bringing into the space, into the Zoom world. And so really think about that when you're in a space with someone and can touch, that you always ask for consent. Or a lot of times you can say like, flip the corner of your mat over. Or some people have like little stickers, you know, that's another thing to think about. And in a Zoom world, you know, say like, hey, can I give you an adjustment or call you out during class? Some people get freaked out if you call their name out during class because that's even an adjustment because it brings someone to attention. So you could do that whole thing where you ask for reactions, you know, can just give a thumbs up if you want me to, like I just did, if you want me to, you know, give you suggestions while I'm teaching this group class. This is going to be really weird. I'm going to give you a handshake kind of adjustment thing. Do you ever get a creepy handshake? Right? Ugh, it's like a bad date. Ugh, where it's just like, it just gives you the skeevies. Okay, so pretend that your right hand is George and your left hand is Susie. I wish you all were here because about this time my neighbor likes to smoke the worst smelling pot ever, and it always seems to come into my room. It's just so like, I'm like, woohoo, smells. Okay, so George and what did I say, Susie? Okay, so have George and Susie shake each other's hands like they want the job. Right? Too heavy, too strong. Okay, have George like a really bad date with Susie or Sammy or whomever you want your date. It can be any kind of sex, but just like shake their hand like, ew, creepy. Ew, gross. Right? This is kind of the idea. Now find the middle path, right? We're practicing the middle path. Not too tight, not too loose, kind of like Goldilocks's porridge. Andrea's done this in real life. It's way more effective in real life. But that's kind of how you want to touch your students when you're touching them. You don't want to be like, ooh, really creepy, gross. Like my least favorite adjustment is when the teacher, and you're in Uttanasana, you're forward fold, and they go like this. Oh, I can't do it on the screen because it's going backwards. But they like go down your back, and it's just like these creepy hands. You don't want to have that kind of connection with your student, right? So when you're touching someone, it's not too tight, it's not too loose. It's just that just right, where you really like, I don't know how many of you have taken Thai massage with Tanya, but that's kind of it. Like you want to adjust a student like you know your shit, and you're going to release those marma points that are really like tight, right? So when we do get to be able to touch people and we don't just elbow bump or like air hug or whatever we're doing right now, that's what you want to kind of feel. And then that's my example of good and bad touch. The other thing is that you want to really practice speaking and teaching as much as you can to keep boosting your confidence level. If you sound, and I learned this teaching college, if you sound apprehensive, it's kind of like what they say about when you're around animals. If you're afraid, they're going to know you're afraid. They can smell it. Well, through the screen, even digitally, if you sound afraid, your students aren't going to resonate with your practice. So does that make sense? So you want to keep boosting your confidence, talk the poses out through in the shower, talk your poses out to, you know, call a friend or FaceTime a friend if no one's with you and you're alone right now, so you can practice and ask them, what does this sound like? Is this too strong? Is this too weak? But then I'm going to give you kind of a wrench in that. Like, I have lots of meditations up on Insight Timer, and sometimes people will post things that aren't so nice, you know? And so like, some people just don't like your voice. So whether you're like assertive or whether you're like, and my mom and I went and hung out, and you have just a different tone, someone just might not like it. And so then that's when, even though you practice teaching as much as you can, it's just not going to work. And to observe your students in a grid-like thing, you literally are going to have to sit like I am near the screen and just look at everybody. And that's okay as a teacher. But what I'm noticing, especially in Zoom classes, is that you have to do everything, or else they might not understand what you're saying or what your cueing is, especially if you have a bunch of newbies. And the final thing is once again, keep promoting the breath. I have taught people who I've said, say they've taken like over 50 classes with me, and they'll come up to me after class and say, oh, when you said that to breathe in blah, blah, blah pose, it was so powerful. You're like, oh yeah, I say breathe all the time, all right? So just remember that when you're practicing your most powerful tool, which are your words and your voice as a teacher, constantly just say the word breathe, because people don't breathe. So those are things that I wanted to talk about as just when you're doing verbal cues or can't be near anybody. When we work for alignment, it says in the Yoga Sutras, Sthira Sukha Asanam leads to a good life and a good yoga practice. Sthira Sukha means steady state. Yes, steady and easeful state. Have you all heard the story about this effortless effort? Do you know the story behind Sthira Sukha? Well, aren't you lucky? Because I have something to read to you. All right. So, Sthira Sukha Asanam, which leads to a good life and a good yoga practice. And this is a story from Indian mythology. So I'm going to apologize for if I have bastardized this in any way, my friends. Anada, the king of snakes, was floating on the ocean, and his long snake body was coiled to form a couch for Vishnu to lay on it. The snake's 1,000 heads reached up and out like a protective umbrella over Vishnu, because that's the couch that Vishnu was laying on. And the umbrella rests the earth. Does that make sense? So there's the king of snakes floating on the ocean, and he coiled up his body for Vishnu to lay upon. And then the head of Anada came up and became a protective umbrella. But then on top of the umbrella sat the earth. So you've got this Sthira Sukha, this steady and easeful state. In order to attain Sthira and Sukha, our practice has to be sensible and well structured. It has to be balanced. The snake's body is soft and gentle enough to be used as a couch for the god, and at the same time firm and steady enough, the Sthira, to support the whole earth, which is no big deal, right? So we're always on this almost like seesaw of life, where we're wanting to attain these same qualities in our asana practice, making sure we use the least amount of effort or the maximum amount of results in developing them. So we're practicing as we're finding alignment, effort without tension, and relaxation without being dull or lifeless. Cool? And when we find these two qualities of the asana, then we are able to, I just got to find that sheet. Then we are able to use the least amount of effort to create the maximum amount of results on the mat. And it helps us to balance our strengths and our weaknesses in our practice. it's really interesting because that was a story of Shira Sukha, but I guess an American way of seeing it would be like you see a duck floating on the water. It looks really pretty and graceful, but underneath the feet are going flap, 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 right? So we're always needing to harness the pure potentiality of our breath and work to find harmony. It is effortless effort. That's what Shira Sukha really seems like to me. It takes a long time, and that's why Patabi Joyce is always saying, practice, practice, practice. Or he always said. So as we focus on alignment, it gives us focus and clarity. And yogis also call this drishti, because drishti, which is part of the 5th and 6th limbs of our practice, when we are practicing alignment, we're diving deep inward to pure seeing. We're directing prana through our bodies. It's unforced awareness. And it allows us to see the world correctly. A drishti can also be thought of in a broader context of having the proper view or perspective of one's life. Kind of relating back to that question is, how does it feel alignment in your practice or in your life? And the ancient yogis discovered that where our gaze is directed, our attention naturally flows, and that the quality of our gazing is directly reflected in the quality of our mental thoughts. So that, how many of you teach Ashtanga or practice Ashtanga? So in Ashtanga, we have drishti points, gaze points. So like you'll look and gaze past the nose, or you'll gaze to the navel, or like in a warrior 2, when you're cueing someone, looking past the fingertip. Those are good cues or drishti points to draw yourself back inward to be aligned in your practice. Because the goal of yoga is to maintain a single pointed focus or concentration of attention. So that control and focus of the attention is your awareness practice. Is this making sense, my friends? All right. So, how many people like magic? Yeah, I like magic. All right. So we're alchemists, we're magicians as we transform and evolve through our yoga practice, because that's what we're doing, right? We're taking our bodies and we're melding it and moving it and churning it and twisting it until we can get all the impurities to leave, right? Hala hala moha shantiye. So get all the poisons out so that we can find the moksha, the freedom, through the practice in our bodies, our minds, and our hearts, our spirits. So I just feel like because every pose is Tadasana, that's kind of the key pose that I really focus on when I teach people about alignment, or when I'm adjusting people in poses. I always start from Tada, I am here, and Tadasana. And to me, that's why I asked about the magic, is because like when the magician pulls the rabbit out of the hat and they go, ta-da, it's kind of like when you're standing, you know, all of a sudden you get like this, right? Usually we're like this, kind of holding everything in, or we're like, ta-da, I am here, God fucking damn it, and I am a voice to be reckoned with, right? Hopefully, I don't know. That's the alchemy of the practice, that, you know, like, what do you stand for and where do you stand, right? If your spine's not in alignment, then you are all blocked off, right? Whether your pelvis tilts one way where you're constipated, or it's dumping everything out and you're giving everything away for free. We're going to do this in a second. But when your spine is in alignment, starting at the ganglion nerves at the base of your spine, and it moves up that super highway to your brain, because your central nervous system is your brain. If you are stuck in fight or flight, or if you're compressed or scared or tense or worried or just like, then what happens is that you start to flip your lid because you're stuck in your amygdala. But if you are in that prefrontal power, that's the higher states of consciousness. That's the Anja chakra. That's where the light of wisdom dawns, that prajna, that inner flame, that inner light. It all comes from alignment. So if you teach your students with strong cues and make it accessible, keep saying breathe, and then every pose is Tadasana, that's really what you're focusing on. You must blow it out the window. Tadasana is also resiliency training, because it's teaching us with that idea of sthira sukha, it's a balance of yielding and striving. So I'm going to get a rubber band. My broccoli rubber band. If I pull, right, at some point it's going to break. But then if I let go, it's like slack. So it's the same thing as the handshake with how you're kind of figured out how you should touch your student. You don't want to yield. You don't want to strive. So you have to find that nice little dynamic tension, right? Okay, now think about this as the trunk of your body. You want everything to find containment, right? Because we're told that our body is a vessel, correct? The kumbha, the pot, kumbhaka, right? So if we think about breathing and prana is your life force, well, we have to get to the base of our kumbha, and just get that shit out. Because if it's stuck, all it is toxins and unhealthy things and stale air and stale thoughts and stale emotions just pushed down and repressed, right? So when we get our kumbha, when we get our pot, ready and filled, and we fill our vessel up with positive stuff, we're literally this circle, right? That's your entire circumference of your body. That's when you live wholeheartedly. That's when you, like Brene Brown, like be vulnerable, when you're authentic. It's when you're really working to get everything to rise up. And then in turn, when things draw to center, there's a ray of light that kind of moves up, right? And that's your hara line. That beautiful energetic line. All right, sick of me yet? No? Doing okay? I like words. Anybody else like words? Oh.
You're doing great.
Okay. So I'm just trying to communicate this because we're not together and we would be touching each other at this point and adjusting. So when you get into Tadasana and tap into this idea of being centered, I really want to say that a lot of people, when they think of Tadasana, they'll be like, ta-da, I am here, but they become really rigid, right? And they think of it as like their body, this line of energy, this line of freedom. But actually, Tadasana is very gentle and genuine and fluid, because if your hands are your feet and your feet are your hands, This is where tada stems from your center. And I think that that's a huge thing to emphasize with your students, because people see yoga as an exercise for inner strength to get the hero physique, right? And they come to in for the stretch, but it's like, haha, you're leaving with so much more, because we're really like, you know, not teaching exercise, which a lot of people see that it is, but you're teaching this 5,000-year-old discipline that is an opportunity to create calm and balance in this overtaxing world. And right now, this over fucked up world. Yeah. And I literally have had a student over 100 years old. Right? So you're teaching from, like, you could say 0, because there might be a lady who just got pregnant and came in your class, or a guy who has female hormones and just got pregnant. So like, you're teaching from like 0 to 108, right? You have the ability with these skills that you're learning here to teach anyone how to benefit from standing in their truth, right? From coming into alignment. And you can adjust them with your words. Your spinal column is so magical, right? The subtle levels of the body, those lines of communications. I'm not going to go deep into this, because this is like stuff that other people have shared with you, and we're focusing more on adjustments and alignment here. But chakras and nadis, right? They flow and they're liberated through here. And through proper breathing and movement techniques, you start to open up the 5 vayus, right? You've studied vayus, the pathways of breath. Yeah. So these invisible centers, these chakras, run from the base of the spine to the top of the skull and off and around, right, in our space. And yoga practitioners believe that if you have disease or something that affects your behavior and attitudes, you can balance and restore harmony in your body just by practicing, right? Because when you're doing hatha yoga properly, any kind of yoga practice, you can release disease from the body. So like your endocrine system does its job. Your fight or flight response, that's kind of in your L4, L5, where you like feel that compression, or like someone says like, oh, my back hurts. Your practice releases the kidneys and that compression in the fight or flight. When children are stressed out, or adults are stressed out and they stop breathing because it gets trapped, right? And when our bodies are out of whack, we literally are not in alignment. So when we practice, we create connections from disconnections. So speaking of this idea of, the ancients believed that we could heal ourselves. Ashtanga, right? The Ashtanga practice. So I just wanted to show you, Ashtanga was called Yoga Chikitsa. You heard that? Yoga Chikitsa? Yep. So Yoga Chikitsa is another way of saying yoga therapy, but don't tell that to Yoga Alliance when you sign up and say that you took class, because it's not therapy, okay? Just making sure, because we're not the yoga therapy. But yoga helps you, and I'm gonna, when you do Ashtanga and you're breathing, so you're working your respiratory system. It's going to be backwards, but you can still see the pretty pictures, right? So you're working your respiratory system. You're massaging your endocrine system. You are moving the breath through the lines of communication on your spine that works your nervous system, from the ganglion and nerves, which we're going to find in a second, all the way to your brain. So your central nervous system all the way up, you're affecting all of these things, and you're balancing out the parasympathetic and the sympathetic so that everything stays in a state of calm and equanimity. And then the lines of communication in your body, this is something that I got from, you can't really see it, but I got it from a chiropractor, and it's eliciting emotions body chart. This is actually in the chair yoga manual. And it's really fascinating because, like, yogis, oh, someone raised their hand. Someone can talk if you want to talk. I'm not good at multitasking. What's up, Joyce?
Oh, it's me. You can finish your thought. It's finish what you're saying, and just later. It's not pertaining to anything about at the moment. So keep going.
Okay. So thank you. So what's interesting is that ancient yogis who were practicing this yoga chikitsa and going around from town to town, you know, giving a pose and giving a breath to someone to help them heal their dis-ease and discomfort so that they could find wholeness. They didn't know, like, what scientists know now, that, like, say, C7 is to your thyroid and your bursa and your shoulders and your elbows, or like T5, the nerves go to your liver, your solar plexus, or help with circulation in your heart and your stomach. So it's pretty fascinating that without microscopes, doctors are proving something that ancients, through wisdom and sitting and listening and these movement practices, figured out. I think it's fascinating. So that your practice is literally you massaging your entire body to help you to let go and literally get you back into alignment. And there's a saying that one can literally feel the weight of the world roll off their shoulders as they stand or sit comfortably. And it's totally true. When you're in alignment, everything just kind of falls into place. So I kind of want to start practice now, where we're going to practice teaching ourselves how to stand in alignment. And then we're going to do poses and adjust with our words and practice poses with the wall. How would you like to have a bio break? Do, 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 do.
Oh, Jess, can I ask my question now?
I'd love that.
It was something you said. I just want to write down because I liked it. It was something about that a teacher is teaching calm and something in this fucked up world. So what was that saying?
Oh, I don't know. Usually I just kind of riff.
Oh, okay.
I've been riffing for you. I'm like sitting here like, let me see.
It was kind of like what your job as a yoga teacher is. You're teaching, you're not there to teach exercise. You're there to teach calm. And I don't know. I tried to write it down.
Oh, well, you're balancing, you're helping to people balance their energies so that they can find harmony in their lives.
Okay.
Was it connection in a disconnected world and right now a fucked up world?
Yeah, maybe that one. What was that? Did you write it down?
I didn't write it down, but it just came to me, so I thought maybe I was here for you.
Yeah, it's like teaching calm and something in this fucked up world, or right now fucked up world, or whatever.
I think
yes, during these unprecedented times, we're creating connections from disconnections and ease from dis-ease.
Thanks for your riffing. It's awesome.
It is awesome. But you want to know what's really great is I can listen to this again later and I'll get it.
That's what I was just going to say. I was going to say we can all listen to it again.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. So it's 7:41 on my laptop. Do you want to have a 5-minute bio break? Okay, so we'll see each other back. Let's say it's 7:41.30. So let's 7:46.30. Sound good? Awesome. And I'm just going to stay on the line. I'm just going to mute it so you can't hear me go to the bathroom. I apologize. I just drank something, so I'm burping. All right. So we have an hour and 15 minutes left. Really, we have like. Should I start? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So, one thing that I wanted to say that I didn't mention was the idea of drishti. And does anybody know David Life and Sharon Gannon, Jivamukti Yoga co-founders? So they have some really, really beautiful ways of teaching the 8-limb path, and they turn the 8-limb path into a lifestyle. And so Jivamukti, you know, it's their whole program incorporates food and lifestyle and everything like that. But so as we talk about drishti, and I was saying how it's about pure seeing, and how to me it's about seeing the world correctly. I think this will help you when you're teaching too. Drishti isn't limited to its value in asana, and this is something that I'm paraphrasing from David Life. In Sanskrit, drishti can mean vision or a point of view or intelligence and wisdom. The use of drishti in asana serves as both a training technique and a metaphor for focusing consciousness towards a vision of oneness. I think that's really profound and beautiful. Oh, hey, is that Michelle? Hi, friend. Oh my gosh. Alan came to my parents' house and he asked me if I had seen you. And I was like, well, I will be seeing her soon. So nice to see you. He says hi, he's worried about you. So, in a good way. He just wanted to check in and make sure you're okay. Sorry, I had a little moment. I jumped. I apologize. So when you're talking about drishti, it's a metaphor for consciousness towards a vision of oneness. And drishti organizes our perceptions to overcome the limits of normal vision, which I think is a huge thing right now with what we're dealing with. Our eyes can only see objects in front of us that reflect the visible spectrum of light, but yogis seek to view an inner reality not normally visible. Ooh, I just got chills. We become aware of how our brains only let us see what we want to see, which is a projection of our own limited ideas and experiences. So opinions, prejudice, and habits prevent us from seeing unity. So drishti is a technique for looking for the divine everywhere. In Light on Pranayama, BKSI Iyengar had commented that the eyes play a predominant part in the practice of asanas. Besides its use in the asana, drishti is applied in other practices like, So also drishti isn't something that's limited to Ashtanga Vinyasa. I think it's something that we should be teaching in every class, that gaze point for that pure seeing, for unification, and to let go of our perceptions and to find a greater good, a greater whole. Okay, so that's what I wanted to say about that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is you all have been studying the bandhas, correct? Yeah. So you're smiling. One thing that's really, really huge about all of this is that these energy locks really, really help us not only to remain relaxed and calm at all times, but it allows the subtle energy to flow. So as you're teaching, I'm using the word breath, right? And I'm talking about a kumbha, But you really want to think about everything that you're doing is a dance of opposites. So I like to think of it of opposing forces where energy can flow like a battery, right? So we have in the Ha and Ta, we know what Ha and Ta is, right? Right, sun and moon. So we already have these dances of opposites. And we've got positive and negative. You can think of light and dark, or hard and soft, or good and bad, or Sthira Sukha, right? Or the idea of Shiva Shakti, even like salt and pepper. You know, I mean, you could like name a bunch of stuff, right? But the idea is that as you're cueing and using your voice, you really want to make sure that you are constantly, when you're talking about the breath, that you're balancing out the inhales and the exhales. That you're really cueing to people about breathing as being a balance of two separate things. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to talk a little bit about the Mula Bandha and the Uddiyana Bandha kind of areas. Yeah, peace out, man. This is awesome. Okay, so if you stood up, I've been having a big monologue here, but when you talk about the practice and we are working in yoga, I'm gonna, another bastardization of a Upanishad story. Are you ready? We have to have this dynamic opposites, not just going with the breath, but like that rubber band I was showing you, it has to be a full circle, the entire circumference, the wholehearted aspect of breathing through your entire body. So the story goes, this is your queen, this is your king. That dynamic opposition, right? They need to get together to create a kingdom. That kind of get together, right? So in order to create a kingdom, these two have to get it on. But if one is leading, see how I'm kind of like tucked in and congested? Then I'm getting constipated, right? In my mind and my body and everything. If I'm going like this, I'm dumping everything out and I'm letting it go. So one of the things that you can talk to your students about when you're cueing to them is that these hips are almost like the manservants, and they're helping the king and queen get it on so they can create a kingdom. So the energy points meet, and I'm back further so you can see me, someplace down here and someplace up here, so that you have this beautiful line of freedom. So in order to feel the king and the queen getting it on and making sure that they're actively participating in balancing your body and your mind and your heart, you have to kind of like think of your pelvis almost like it's got a bowl, right? You've got your iliac crest at the top, right? Your iliac crest at the top, and then you've got your pubic bone here, down at the bottom, right? You have your perineum muscle, which is like this beautiful sling that kind of is like a triangle that goes between the place you go 1 and the place you go 2, right? So you're trying to uplift the energy and get your bandhas engaged so that you can teach your students to go ta-da and not be standing like this. Because then they're not really going to be doing the poses, they're going to be muscling through everything. Does that make sense? Yes? I'm making you laugh. Okay. So one thing that I want you to feel is, and this is a great way to help your students. And have you ever done this? You engage your adductors, right, which run from the pubic area down towards the knees, and you take a block and you put it in between the legs. and you literally squeeze the block. If you don't have a block, you could use a water bottle, you could use a sweatshirt rolled up. But by doing that, you guys don't have your sound on, but what does it feel like? What is the sensation? Do you feel the engagement? Do you feel your body starting to activate? Thumbs up? Yeah. So just by putting the block in between your legs, you start to engage the king and queen to have a good conversation, right? I told a very bad Upanishad story and bastardized it, but to get the sense across that you have, in order to create the kingdom, you have to engage from that space and lift up. Another way of talking about it would be like, you know how some people do the diamond path or the diamond way meditation centers, or you've heard of the diamond path, diamond way? It's something that people talk a lot about in mindfulness practices and meditation schools. You're trying to get almost like you're taking and putting a piece of coal down in your magic spaces, and you're trying to engage the coal. It's not like when you're taking and practicing Pilates and they say it should be like squeezing a penny in your butt. It's something different. It comes deep from within, where we have lots of cervixes in our body. We have a cervix down here. We have a cervix in our diaphragm, and then we have one up in the Jalandhara area, in the gluteus, kind of like that. So what we're trying to do is get these things to start to move, dynamic opposition, and to get to resonate and work with each other and vibrate, right? So the idea is that you want to feel like you're taking a piece of coal and you're turning it into a diamond. That's a diamond path, or the diamond way. So one way that I have students feel where the breathing should come from or how to get into alignment is I literally, I have a hula hoop in my house. A lot of people don't have hula hoops, but you could take and place your hands on your hips. You're standing frontal hip bone distance apart, and imagine that you do have a pelvic bowl from your iliac crest to your pubic bone, right? And what you're going to do is imperceptibly to the eye, with your king and queen very balanced, because you want to have this bowl and you don't want to dump out any water. Can you feel a little ball bearing at the base of this bowl? And all you want to do is kind of move it around imperceptibly to anybody else, but you just want to move it around, almost like you're hula hooping. And this is how a lot of times I'll have people start feeling their alignment start. It gives you that little feeling. Do you like my sound effects? Yeah. Did that make sense to everybody? Yeah. Another thing that I have people do to start to condition, and I'm going to use a word that I really hate, their core. A lot of people need to access bandhas by talking about the core. So I'm going to show you a really, really simple thing to do with your students to help them feel where their practice should start from so that they can be in proper alignment. Ready? You take your block. You, can you see me if I lay down like this? Yeah? Okay. So I'm laying down, my block is in between my legs, my arms are down by my sides, totally relaxed. I imagine that there's a little marshmallow underneath my sacrum, and I'm gonna use my exhale and squeeze the block and lift up only to make the marshmallow not compressed. And then when I inhale, I'm gonna just relax, and I just let the marshmallow get mushed. And then I exhale and I lift up just a little bit. And that's how I start to feel that base of my alignment working. I exhale, create space for the marshmallow. My belly moves in and up. And then when I inhale, I just relax. So I exhale and create space for the marshmallow. And then I inhale and relax. And that's how I start to teach people about finding their midline and accessing their seed center. So how many of you have heard seed center? These are all tricks I've been using to cue alignment for people who aren't with you, like in our Zoom world right now. So take your index finger to find your seed center and bring it into your belly button. Take 3 fingers of the other hand and bring it right below the index finger that's in your belly button. From this position, release the belly button and place that pointer finger below the 3 fingers. And this is an area in your transverse abdominal walls where I start to tell people that now that you're starting to engage and lift up, getting the king and queen to have a good conversation, you also have to start breathing from this space right here. 30 to 40% of our breath for normal people is right here. Most people are always in this state of anxiety, which we're dealing with right now. It's even higher. So most people live 98% away from their body, disconnected. We're trying to create, like Joyce was hearing before, connections from disconnections. And as everything is happening right now, most people are chest breathing. So just cueing to breathe 3 fingers below the belly button and breathe tall and wide, not just up and down, but tall and wide. Those are really good cue words, tall and wide. Because then once again, we're breathing wholeheartedly like the circle, and we're breathing the entire depth and breadth of our being so that we can be authentic and we can clean out the kumbha and be able to create greatness. All right, so that's one way to find the seed center. Does that make sense? All right, awesome. That's a really great way to communicate with your students too. Thanks, Claire, I like that. It's a really great way to communicate with your students to try these silly little exercises, because then they see the breath not as like, oh, I'm breathing in and out through my nose and I make that funny Darth Vader noise in my Ujjayi pranayama. Throw that away. Ujjayi is victory over the mind. It has nothing to do with making a funny noise. I have an Iyengar teacher who's like, who's making that sound, right? He's always like, what the fuck is happening over there? Because really, you don't need like this magic breath to go to yoga land, right? You can be in yoga land all the time, right? It's about allowing yourself to take the breath, not just thinking like, oh, it just has to go in and out through my nose, because then it gets stuck in the chest, to go all the way down to that space, 3 fingers below the belly. So now that you've found your seed center and you're going to teach that to your students, the other thing that I like to do, which is going to be really hard because we're not together, right? But another way that I really like to teach alignment is through the yoga strap. So the women in our group, and maybe the men too, we wear jog bras, even with itty bitty titties like mine. And and you could take, if you want to, what I would have you do is I would have a friend behind you and I would have you stand and put your fingers behind their jog bra and I would have them breathe so that they fill up and put pressure on the fingers behind you. It's a yoga therapy trick, but remember, I'm not teaching you yoga therapy, right? But we can try. So you take the strap and you bring it. It doesn't, you can tie it. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, if you want to use the D-rings or whatever. But have a student practice with something around here. They will automatically start to find this alignment. Because all of a sudden they have to breathe deeper, because they have to feel a subtle compression with the band around their bodies to come into alignment. They can't have their shoulders forward and take a deep breath. I mean, they can, but it's going to hurt after a while. So the strap, I find, is a really good tool. Another thing too is it helps them really feel if they're doing more shoulder breathing than they're doing belly breathing. And something I like to do with the block on that same note to get into alignment, I often will start practice laying on the back with the block on the belly. Or say like, go get a heavy book, everybody, and put the book on the belly. And then the belly rises and the belly falls, so that they can feel that breathing from a deeper place. Does that make sense? Simple tools for alignment that you don't have to do being in the same space with them. But if we were in the same space together, what we would do is we would practice this yoga therapy breath, where first you start by having your, you partner up and you have your hands on your friend's belly. And then you take your hands to your friend's upper chest, and then your hands to your friend's back, and then your hands to your friend's low back. And see where, it's a 4-part breathing practice. And you would do like 2 minutes of breathing with your hands in these 4 positions to see where you really breathe. And it's amazing how many people can't even, can only shoulder breathe. So that's why this strap was my example of that exercise that we would have done if we were together. And especially now, like even cueing in meditations, take one hand to your heart and one hand to your tummy. And do the Durga breath, the 3-part breath. You've heard of the integral breath called the Durga breath. That's kind of like Om. Ah in the belly. Ooh in the chest. Right here. And then like incense, you just kind of give space. Ah, ooh, eme, space. So you could do a 3-part breath. You could have hands to heart, hand to tummy, or you could cue oming. Not O-M, the American way, but the ah, ooh, a, yeah. All right. And another way that I help people in this world that we're in right now get into alignment is I have them do ego eradicator breath, or the breath of fire. It's too late to do it now because I want you all to get a good night's sleep, but we'll do it tomorrow together. How's that? Fun. Okay. And let's see. So I've already said the block to get the king and queen to have a good conversation and to get your body in proper alignment. But another thing I like to do if your students have a block is that's the best way to do a sun salutation with a block in between the legs. It really helps with alignment. And when you're coming into, say, plank pose and you're practicing especially if you get saggy here, squeezing the block automatically will make you elevate and come into alignment. And when we're doing plank pose with the block, nice, Andrea, you can take, oh, nice, Jess. Okay, now Jess, put your ball mounts of the feet to the floorboards and your heels up the wall and squeeze the block. So now everyone, I'm gonna take and do what I just told Jess to do. I'm gonna take the block in between my legs, ball mounts of the feet to the ground and my heels up, and I'm gonna push back with my heels and lengthen with the top of my head. And now all of a sudden, I'm in this really awesome adjustment for plank. You can't see me, but I don't know if you can hear me. I'm definitely sweating. It's good you can't smell me. So that's another great adjustment. When you're talking about alignment, and we're starting from the feet up, one thing to do is to just have your students place the, can you see my feet? Yeah. Place the big toes down and then spread out your toes from the big toe. You can do this with the block in between also. So your big toes touch down and the rest of the toes fan out. And you want to feel the ball mounts in your heels like 4 points of the axles on a car. So a car has 4 wheels. Think of 2 wheels up front and 2 wheels on back. So that no matter if you're balancing on one leg or the other, you have 4 points of contact. And your toes aren't gripping. Remember, advanced yogis lift their toes up. You don't need your toes to practice, because you have that steadiness from the foundation up. Your knees are super resilient. So a way that I cue knees to people is to say, that's nice, Michael. Do you feel that? Yeah, awesome. Okay, so when it comes to knees, this is kind of the handshake example. You want your bones to hug your muscles and your muscles to hug your bones. So everybody, if you hold out your arm, you know how you can get bat wings, right? Okay, so now engage your hands like in an Ashtanga practice where our fingers come together, right? So reach your arms out and do dynamic opposition. Bones hug muscles, muscles hug bones. So all that flaccid stuff that I just showed you now is completely active because I'm engaging from the inside out. So that's a huge verbal cue to help someone come into alignment. And that the same thing would happen with your knees, right? Because we're doing foundation on up, so feet. But then feel like, you know, when you pull on really tight pants or someone else's clothes because you broke the zipper on your jeans and you just need to wear something? Or like how some times, like, you know, your yoga pants are super tight, but you just got to get them on. That's what you want to feel your knees are doing. So it's really weird. You never lock out your knees. And most people, when they stand, they lock out their knees, which can cause a lot of hypermobility. So I always say that there's a little shock absorber, a little micro bend in the knees. And remember we were talking about like how T.S. Little, Richard Freeman, Rod Stryker, and John Friend were all peers. They talk about vortexes of energy a lot. So the thumbs spiral inward, but the ankles spiral outward. The knees spiral inward, but the hips spiral outward. Does that make sense? And then we're back to the Ha and Ta. We're back to the Sthira Sukha. where these vortexes of energy are balancing each other out. So that if I have my feet down and I start working with that engagement and I have shock absorbers in my knees, my knee bend is imperceptible, but I can feel it in my body. Okay, so we're gonna try this with, sorry, I'm giving you the cleavage shot. We're gonna try this with triangle pose, Trikonasana. And remember, you do not have to do this stuff. I'm just gonna show you how you can cue this for your students, okay? So we're moving up. We've talked about the breath and how it emanates from your center. We've talked about the king and the queen and how using blocks really helps for people to kind of feel their breathing from down here versus up high. And then we talked about fanning out the toes, making sure you're balanced on your axles or your feet. And then with the resiliency in the knees, this is like something that I really like to do. So Utthita Trikonasana. When you point your fingers down, that's where your ankles should be. Because I don't know if you've ever heard this, but you know when you're shoe shopping and you don't want to take your shoes off and you put your ankle into your elbow and your toes go to your wrist, just like the Vitruvian man or the Vitruvian person, our body is proportional. So that for every body, when we have the flexibility that is our birthright and our superhighway is working properly, we should be able to open wide enough and still be safe and secure. When you point your fingers down, point your toes to a side, and then this is another self-adjustment, but I don't know if I would have students do it, but I'll have you all do it. Say your toes are pointing to the right. Take your left hand, reach it back behind you and grab your right hip. Send your hips to the left. All right, so the first thing people start doing is getting really hypermobile and hyperflexible in the right side. So that starts meniscus problems, and you can talk to me about that after. So what I want to do is press into the ball mounts of my feet and lift my heel. And that engages the proper muscle group. So my heel on the right side is off the ground, and then I'm going to lower it back down because I've got the engagement. Now I can come into Utthita Trikonasana with a micro bend in the knees because I practiced engaging the muscles that were passive in the back of my hamstrings and glute. Because so many people like to dump. Does that make sense? I'm watching everybody. Yeah. It's a really, really hard one, but since we're talking about knees, and you could do the same thing if you were in Warrior 2, right? You don't even have to think about lifting the heel up per se, but your thigh is spiraling out inward. Oh, can you hear me? Okay, my ears just did something weird.
We can still hear you.
You can still hear me? Is the volume bad?
You're killing it. You're doing great.
Oh, I didn't know if the volume was bad. Okay, my ears did some weird sound. So, okay, so you're in your Warrior 2 or extended side angle stretch. Your hips are spiraling outwardly, but your thigh, your quadricep muscle is spiraling inward. Same thing as feeling the block in between your legs. So if we were together, I would be having all of you take a strap onto a friend, your partner's thigh, and literally pulling to feel their thigh come inward. But we can't do that right now. So you have to think about every pose is Tadasana and you're squeezing that block, but you're also blossoming like a lotus flower, right? It's all sexual. Does that make sense? Yeah, Jess.
May I ask you a question, please? When we were in the Trikonasana, I was feeling a lot, when I raised my heel up, I felt a lot of engagement in my calf muscle rather than in, so is that what other people are feeling also, or? I'm just kind of curious. Yeah. It was rather than the hamstring.
Right, which is interesting. So you know now what your default button is, right? So how can I get, you know, my hamstrings to engage? How can I get my glute to squeeze?
Okay.
Bones hug muscles, muscles hug bones. We are so used to kind of tending into the sweetness versus the engagement, because the engagement's hard. So how can you feel the bones hugging the muscles, muscles hugging the bones, everything active? So lifting the heel up is supposed to kind of be like that domino effect, Jess, that goes all the way up to your behind. I don't know if I'm supposed to call you Jessica. Okay. So it's like that handshake example. Everything is not too tight, not too loose. It's Goldilocks has found that just right. It's tough, super tough. Okay, so let's try something with triangle again. Say I want to, and this is, you have to have a pretty good space here. Okay, so my legs go really wide. I'm pointing my fingers down. I'm going to do the left side now so my left side doesn't get sad that I'm letting it go. I'm supposed to feel everything touching the wall. My occipital lobe, my shoulders, my tailbone, which is really easy for me to dump, and I could stick a fist behind my back. Can I use the wall, right? We don't have students with us, so how can I use this wall to my advantage? Nail beds of the fingers, palms face out, reach, 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 stretch, and then spiral. And the hardest thing for me to do is I can really collapse in my back. So how do I, every exhale, stitch my belly in and up to get the bandhas, to get those little trampolines and uplifting energy to start activating. And then this definitely makes my glutes engage, or else I'll start gripping in my toes. Keeping that contact, then release. And come on out the same way you went in. Excuse me. That's tough. Anybody who was leaning against a wall have any comments?
Yeah, can you talk about the glute engagement? I don't feel like I'm using mine very much.
Yeah, no, it's really hard. If the bones hug the muscles, well, because the glutes are friends with the hamstrings. And a lot of times our hamstrings go passive. So when we're in this position and I squeeze my glutes and I lift my toes up and I stretch, 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 then I'm starting to activate the insertion point of the hammies. I have that little micro bend in the knee and I'm trying so desperately to get everything to melt into the wall. So and it's just practice. Okay, so try this, Andrea. Try to do the same thing in an extended side angle so that your feet are to the ground, you're in your position, baby toe touches the floorboards, knee goes to the wall. So you're without the block there, now you're actively engaging. And I can come into an extended side angle or a warrior two, but I really, really, really need to have a good conversation with my king and my queen, or else you've dumped all the energy in your practice. How's that going, Angie?
Yes, may I ask another question with this? We've been talking a lot about like having your feet in their own lanes. And then also, especially with Trikonasana, of, you know, not being between that pane of glass.
Yes.
So when we're trying these, can we have that back foot in its own lane and the hip rotated more.
A hip and yeah, because you're meeting your skeleton.
Okay, right, yeah.
The wall is a kind of like a reference point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to kind of put you into two panes of glass, but I also want you to engage from the proper places.
Okay.
Right. And I don't want to deter from what you're learning in, at your school. This is just a way to cue when no one's around. Remember those gym things we had to do where we had to do the presidential fitness awards or whatever, and they had you do wall squats? That's how I teach people Utkatasana when I can't be with them. So a way to teach Utkatasana when you're not present, my heels, right, obviously aren't going to be to the wall, but my spine can be to the wall to engage a deeper breathing. And I can have someone practice Utkatasana, not dumping all their weight into the ball mounts of their feet, and use the wall to feel Utkatasana. So I'll have them shoulders back, bodies calm, and then taking the arms up so that the pinkies spiral in and the thumb reach out. And we'll just do this for a little bit. It really engages the transverse abdominal walls. And then I'll have them do that for, say, 10 deep breaths, and then come to the mat and practice Utkatasana. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be leaning back like that, but I can start to engage those muscle groups that were activated when I use the wall as my friend to practice adjustments. If we were all together, just like the wall was behind you, I would have you practice with your friends, sitting, having your friend in front of you and almost sitting with your knees underneath their butt. And then you would hold their forearms and you would gently help them reach up a little higher and find more alignment in their pubic bone and tailbone, giving a supportive adjustment. So because you can't really do that, you can use the wall to adjust someone via Zoom class and have them feel a wall squat and then find Utkatasana. Because a lot of people like to make that duck butt, right? And when you practice Utkatasana against the wall, all of a sudden you're like, oh, I need to elongate my spine. Every exhale, I need to zip my ribs together because I have to breathe wholeheartedly. So I have to breathe into my back, which then lengthens out the torso. And then every pose is Tadasana. One of the reasons that I had you do triangle pose, pretending that the hand pulled your hips back, is because if you were in the same space with someone, say I was in triangle pose, you as a teacher could take the strap. Have you done this before? And you harness the hips and you pull the hips into a comfortable position for them. So you help them to start to engage more and feel safer in the pose. And just like what you were saying, Jessica, this doesn't take and switch the pelvic tilt for them, but it definitely helps them create more natural traction to get further into it. It's hard. There, if I'm off screen, there, now it looks like someone's pulling me.
Hey, Jess.
Yeah.
This is Joyce. So In the very beginning, you said, speak 3 cues and talk like you're talking to a robot. So how would you teach that Trikonasana with 3 cues talking like a robot? How would you do it?
Triangle pose?
Yeah.
Okay. Open your arms up wide. Point your toes to a side. Reach. This is more than, now it's 4. And bring one arm up and the other arm down.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you'd have to do more than 3 cues to really get them to be comfortably aligned.
You're right. Yeah. It's hard with just 3 cues. Because I think that hip thing is really important too. Sending the hips the other way.
Yeah. Huge. All right. Crescent lunge is another one crescent lunge and a warrior 1 to adjust with your words. Okay. So I'm standing at the top of my mat, or my imaginary mat. Is my head in the picture?
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to stand and bring, say, my left foot back. And I've got my feet in their own lanes. But one thing you can do to have your students feel alignment, whether they're in a warrior 1 or a crescent lunge, is they can take their hands to their hips. So I can take my right hand to my right hip because my right foot's forward, my left hand to my left hip behind me, and I can readjust, because a lot of times your hips get out of whack in like a crescent or a warrior 1, and you want your hip points pointing forward. So now I've given myself a self-adjustment by having a hand on the hip and the other hand at the other hip. Make sense? Another thing I really like to do, right? And once again, we're in separate spaces, but I do the karate chop. Have you ever had the karate chop adjustment? Not like whack, you're in trouble, karate chop, but like, okay, so you have to like really visualize this, okay? I'm in warrior 2, right? And I want to adjust my student so that their knee is above the ankle but not beyond it, and that their hips are underneath their shoulders, right? Most powerful words, most powerful things are your cueing and your words, right? But if you're in the presence of someone, you would take, now remember, imagine that I was in my bent knee triangle. I would get into a stable position and I would put one hand to the hip and one hand behind the knee, and I would literally just push into the back of the knee, and someone's behind me right now, and into the hip. Am I making sense? So I'm another person with this hand. I'm another person with this hand. I have a hand to the hip, I have a hand to the knee, and I'm pulling in opposite directions to get, did you see how I got into the pose more? Without hammocking here, but getting them into the pose to be more active. Now my torso's out of whack because I'm adjusting myself. My hand is getting the knee in the proper position, my hand is getting the hip in the proper position, and the shoulders are over the hips. Fun? Have you seen that one before? Okay. Another thing that we can't do to adjust someone that you can practice if you're with someone social distancing, or if you have a friend you can practice on that will wear a mask. This is a really simple one to lengthen the neck. It's like claw fingers. I just take the hands, like say in a triangle pose, or can you hear me still? Yes? Okay. My earpieces keep making funny noises, so I don't know if I'm tuning out or not, but if you can hear me, I'll just keep asking. Okay, so you're just taking, not creepy hands, right? And you're just lengthening the neck away so the shoulders move away from the ears. You can do that in triangle. You can do that in tree pose. You can do that in a hero pose, a warrior pose. You're just lengthening the neck. It's a really great way to help people to take tension out of their shoulders. And it's simply just taking your hands and separating thumb and index finger. And if you're not using creepy touch, then it's perfect. Okay, have a couple more minutes before we're going to do our closing meditation. So how many of you have done Uttanasana against a wall? Jess has? Yeah. So this is a great way to teach someone to fold forward if they aren't feeling like they're doing it properly, or if you're not able to adjust them like in Zoom, like we are now. So you use the wall. You're gonna see my butt, I apologize. So all you do is you take your thumb and your fingers and you separate your thumb and your index finger, and you have the hands break into thumbs to one side and index finger to the other side of the floorboards. You're in down dog, and you just walk your feet towards your hands to get your back to the wall, and then you bring your hands up. Now, I can't see if my hips are in alignment. I already know that they have a tendency to go out of whack, but every breath I take, I'm using the wall to get into Uttanasana. And I have to take, same thing as if I was standing in Tadasana, my occipital lobe, my shoulders, my back are aiming to touch the wall. And have people come out slowly so they don't get vertigo.
About how far are the feet from the wall, Jess?
I'm sorry, what?
About how far, your feet weren't touching the wall, but about how far away were they from the wall?
Well, I started in down dog and I walked my feet as close as I could.
Oh yeah, okay, thanks.
Yeah. Until my feet came to my mouth. Just kidding. But that's a pretty amazing stretch. It feels really weird. You just have them bring one hand up and then the other hand up, and then you've got this really nice kind of forward fold. The longest nerve in your body is the vagus nerve, correct? The wandering nerve. And that's what we're trying to engage when we practice, because we want to get the parasympathetic nervous system to relax. So always remember that your face does yoga. And often when you have RBF, which is resting bitch face, then you kind of are compressing everything. So you want to feel like your forehead is relaxed. And a lot of times when I'm teaching Jalhandhara Bandhas, where you're bringing your chin to your chest and your chest to your chin, I'll have people put like a tennis ball there and lengthen the back of the neck, but I'll also have people touch the tongue to the roof of the mouth. And it gives a soft Mona Lisa smile, which relaxes your entire face. And that's huge too, to think about your face doing yoga. Like one time my nephew filmed me doing 108 sun salutations. Like he got a couple of my up dogs, not like the whole thing, but he happened to be in the same room. And I looked like I was taking a dookie because my face got really kind of compressed and like, like strained. So really think about too, when you're cueing your students into alignment, how can you cue the face to have a soft Mona Lisa smile and be really relaxed? And that is a way for your eyes even to do yoga, right? Because your eyes are having pure seeing and you're looking out into the universe, but you're also looking inward. So that gaze is like it's going out, but it's bouncing right back in, that prajna, right into the Anda chakra. Want to do a Paschimottanasana adjustment? All right. This is something you can cue with your hands. You can also do it in Uttanasana. Which one would you like to see it in, Paschimottanasana or Uttanasana? Pashi, down on the ground. Okay. So whether I'm standing or I'm seated, one of the things that your students have a hard time doing is, because we hold so much stress in our L4, L5, and we do so much compression, we want our kidneys to grow wings. We want them to grow wings so that we can expand and fly when we're practicing. So one thing that you can do to get that freedom, whether it's Uttanasana or whether it is sitting in, remember, there's only about 6 poses in our yoga practice that we just do in different variations. And then we have like the 908 that Dharma Mitra took pictures of, and now all the ones that our Western yogis are creating. But the basic yoga practices were only based off of 6 moves. So you bend your knees, you reach your hands underneath like you're giving your legs a hug. When you're standing, if you want to, you can take your hands, you see my hand went through my calves, crossed at the wrists and grabbed onto the tops of my legs. And then I scoot my feet forward and I automatically have my stomach to my thighs. Most people, when they do Uttanasana, they don't have their stomach to their thighs. Most people, when they do Paschimottanasana, they don't have their stomach to their thighs. But now, as my chest is to my legs, I have more space in my lower lumbar region, right? And then once I get comfortable and my stomach isn't going to leave my thighs, then I reach my hands forward into the full position, and then I inchworm myself forward with every breath, right? But I have a really long torso, so, but with people who don't do well in that pose, taking and giving yourself a big hug and keeping a bend in the knees so that you're connected is going to be magic for their practice. That is a great, great verbal cue to help people get to where they need to go to, and engage their Mula Bandha, Uddiyana Bandha, and start to feel that dance of opposites, engaging their body into a deeper stretch. Sweet. Doggy. All right. So, another simple adjustment that you can do, which is really easy. Have you ever worn suspenders? No? Okay, so bankers used to wear suspenders, and I'm gonna just sit closer so that you can see me. But if I had, say, a block in between my legs, or if I had my students practice getting the king and queen to work well together, I would take my thumbs underneath my armpits and pretend I had my hands on my suspenders. When I do that, most of us are rounded this way, but that beautiful triangular bone of your shoulder fits in your back pockets. Who would have thunk? But when we're protected and everything's so heavy, we need to remind ourselves. So just taking your thumbs underneath your armpits, did you notice? Okay, can you hear me? Okay, these have died, so I just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, so your thumbs go underneath your armpits and your shoulders drop back. Your sternum starts to really do what it's supposed to do. But we're so busy using our sternum to protect our heart in times of stress and anxiety that we kind of round in. So banker's pose is a great way to teach your students how to stand in alignment and cue and adjust them without even being there. Sweet. Now that we've all touched our sweaty armpits, so once again, just kind of coming back to the beginning before our final meditation together. Remember that asanas don't have alignment, people have alignment. And alignment relates to hatha yoga because what we're doing is helping us work into the breath, our prana, our life force energy, to empower us to thrive. And then we can build a strong foundation on and off the yoga mat, and we can flow with all of life's challenges, especially during these unprecedented times. We didn't break into breakout rooms today, but we will tomorrow, definitely for chair yoga. Every pose is Tadasana. Use your words wisely and keep saying breathe and smile, and that's it. You won, you're the teacher. Want to tap into the power of stillness? Awesome. Oh, that's a yes. Okay. So literally, I'm just setting my insight timer to 8 minutes, and we'll meditate together. I truly appreciate the time and energy that you spent being present. Thank you so much for hanging out. As you come into a comfortable position, really think about, even though we're seated, how you can still be standing in alignment, authentic in your truth, and just offer yourself some tenderness as we breathe together. And then after, we'll just go around and each say one word about this tech, and then we will conclude our evening, and I will send you all emails for those of you who still need your manuals. So sitting on the platform of your breath. Let's begin. As we bring our hands to our forehead for right thought and our hands to our mouth for right speech and our hands to our heart for right action. May the merits of our practice together benefit all beings. I truly honor and respect the power within all of you. Wishing you joy and well-being, peace and love. Thank you for being here tonight. Namaste.
Namaste.
If anybody has a one-word recap or anything that they want to say about alignment and adjustments in the time of COVID, using your words or the wall or adjustments.
The word that comes to mind for me is just better. Better in body and spirit.
Nice.
Supported. Connections.
Sweet.
Heard.
It's fantastic to see all of your beautiful faces at 9 o'clock. I know you start really early tomorrow, and I will reply to emails and everything. Oh, how cute. Hi, Jessica's cute son. And we will all see each other around 11 o'clock tomorrow. Be safe. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
Jess.
everyone.
Thank you so
I'll see you
much.
tomorrow. Thank you.